guest. Many of you may know Dr. Frame and the work that he's doing. Dr. Frame is a visionary leader. He's a catalyst for social change, and he's also the founder of the Black Man Can. And if you have been following the movement of getting black men to be and to be accepted more by society by the things that you're doing, you may have come across Dr. Frame's work. But before we get into the conversation itself today, I will ask Dr. Frame to share more about himself and his journey and the impact that he's having in the world.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cross, for having me as a guest on your platform. I'm Dr. Brandon Frame, and I am just a vessel for the Lord. I think that God puts us on earth. Um, he gives us ideas are spiritual children seated by God inside of us. And I've just been kind of listening to him with those ideas, um, with some of the dreams, and figuring out the best way to put those into action to make impact in the world, and how that shows up for Black men, Black women, Black people, and society at large.
Well, and I really like how you put it. We all are here to carry out God's work. And, once we approach each day with that mindset, it actually even amplifies what we have, what we feel compelled to do, knowing that we're not doing this thing just for ourselves or by ourselves. We're doing this for a greater impact and to serve God and to serve humanity. And, so, man, it's just great to have you here. I've been admiring the work that you are doing for a long time. Before I start asking the question itself, I know I've mentioned that you were the founder of the Black Man Can. I just want you to share a little bit more for those who may not know and who may need to get a refresher of what the Black Man Can is about.
The Black Man Can is a nonprofit organization dedicated to telling the stories, amplifying the stories, creating programs and content focused on Black men and boys. We work in schools, we work in juvenile facilities, work with companies and brands, and we have our merch line, all in the effort to tell our stories, showcase how amazing we are, show how we're showing up in the world, the impact that we're making, how we are showing up for our families, in our communities. And again, that's just an idea that God gave me, and I've just been trying to follow through on that for the last 15 years.
Man, and that's some real commitment. And we know that we have heard a lot of negative things about black men. So it's really important, that we override those negative stereotypes that we have been conditioned to think. Some of us haven't fall prey to the negative stereotypes and labels, but it's work like what you're doing and what many others are doing. That help to change that narrative. So, man, I really have to commend you and serving at especially for 15 years doing it and going strong. So my first question to you today, which the focus is on transformation through intentional impact. And that which you're doing is intentional. So my first question to you, which is on personal transformation and growth, can you share a defining moment in your life that sparked your journey toward intentional impact? What really, sparked you doing the work that you're doing?
I mean, it's a great question because I think there's multiple points I think that really played a pivotal role for me. Um, but I believe the story that I could share, and I've shared it. I'm trying to think of a story that like maybe I haven't shared, but I feel like it's such an important one that your viewers should hear it as well. But when I was a student at Morehouse, that's when I started the Black Man Can. and it was or the genesis of Starting the Black Man Can. I started a mentoring program. I mean, it was on the east side of Atlanta, and so like just like many communities, if you live on one side of the city, you never go to the other side of the city. So we brought students to Morehouse because the program was on the east side, so they had never been to like the southwest side of Atlanta. And afterwards, we did a debrief of their experience at Morehouse, and a young man said, the only other place that he could think of that was like Morehouse was jail. He couldn't
Wow.
think of another place with 3,000 black men at one place at one time. And that was a moment, that was a catalyst to let me know that um, a quote that I live by is once you make an observation, you have an obligation. So I made an observation in that moment that black men and boys need to see positive images of themselves and need to have their stories told. And so therefore I created it in the form of the Black Man Can.
Man, and please repeat that quote. I think it's really profound, and I think we all have to. I know you said make an observation, and what's the next part of it?
Once you make an observation, you have an obligation.
And I think that is so true because there are things that we will see that others will not see, and once we see it and there is work needs to be done, it is on us to do it. And I think that is really profound and a great call to action actually, when it comes to doing the work that makes a difference, which leads me to my next question to you, still on personal transformation and growth. What daily habits or routines do you practice to ensure you are growing and evolving as a leader?
I think daily routines, habits that I practice, one is affirmations. So I constantly am sharing affirmations with myself to um, motivate myself and inspire myself. That is something that I'm always doing. Um, Church, so spiritual, God is very important to me. So making sure that I have regular conversations with Him, and He serves as an anchor for me. Um, Definitely do lots of reading. I'm always on the thing to read 6 or 7 books a year. So currently reading Jason Wilson's book, the Man for the Moment, which is really good about comprehensive manhood. So those are just some of the routines. I think also working out. Once we get off, I'm gonna head to the gym and get a little swim in. I think all these different things help play a role in me being effective, and as I'm just trying to make impact in the world.
Well, as you touch on a few points that I'm just going to go over because I think, one of the things that we hear when it comes to black men or black boys that we don't read a lot. And to hear it from leaders who looks like them or looks, they can say, what, man, Dr. Frame is doing it. So it's important that I do it. And especially with the impact that you're having. But to go back to with the observation that you have made, with the young man didn't see so many black men, and just having that opportunity to be in a space where they can see something different from what they normally see, and that is really important. But as you mentioned, affirmation, God, reading, and the gym. And I think when we're working on ourselves, it's important that we put that spiritual part in it, because again, this is not just about us. And once we take ourselves out of the picture and focus on what the purpose of us being here is, I think we will have a greater impact, and maybe we just stay sustained, for the journey. But I also want to acknowledge um, Principal Kafili. He said he haven't seen you for a while, so I just want to acknowledge that he's here tuning
Oh,
in.
oh, man, that's good. That
Yeah,
made me smile. I haven't seen him in a while as well. That's
yeah,
cool.
yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know it was
He's
live. Like people were
yes,
watching.
yes, yes, yes,
That's
yes, yes, yes. Dr. Kafili, he's one of the pioneers in the on the journey, doing the work, making a great impact. Is somebody that I've seen him work, and I have all his books actually. Um, well, the one that's applicable to me, not the one on principleship, because I'm not really think I'm going in that direction. But um, just I want to, just acknowledge, that being that he said, he haven't seen you for a while, because that's what leaders do. They acknowledge others that they see doing the work, which leads me to my next question: how do you overcome self doubt and limiting beliefs when striving for transformation?
I think one, I have a huge level of optimistic thinking. So that's one. But ultimately, this is where my faith comes into play. I'm fully aware that a righteous man's steps are ordered by the Lord. And so, therefore, the ideas, the goals, the dreams, things that I'm working on, where I see them going, what I'm trying to accomplish, it's already done. I'm just on this journey to accomplishing those things, and there's no necessarily timetable per se on it because God doesn't wear a watch. So I think for that, that's what keeps me optimistic. That's what keeps me going. Like I don't have to wonder. I can there can be pause, right? Because sometimes you're doing something that maybe nobody else has done, so there's no blueprint for it. But then that's why you have to do it, right? Because you're also laying the foundation for somebody to come after to build something.
Oh, that's important. And it just sounds real simple, but as you anchor everything on faith, knowing that you are following the steps that have been ordered already for you. It's like you're fulfilling what's in front of you to do. And once you stay in alignment with that, despite challenges, which sometimes happen, which is outside of our control, we can, find the strength to go through again, because you lean on, the spiritual foundation, and, your guidance from God on your journey, to push through the, whatever comes. But one thing that I wanted to say, which slipped me before I asked the question, on the 66 books, right, that you read per year, um, does that come easy to you? And have you, shared that with young black males, and what are their response to you, reading all those books per year?
Yeah, one thing that I'll say to our young men is that all, not necessarily all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers, right? And so thinking about that, and getting them to identify with the idea that they are readers, that and that they are leaders. And in order to lead effectively, you do have to read, and having a positive connection to reading is really important. It's one reason why I wrote the children's book that I have, is to inspire that joy of reading, and showcase why reading is important. And so that also comes with that constant communication to make that happen, right? You have to just constantly um, put them in places and spaces where they're reading and they're loving reading, and you're engaging them with conversation about what they're reading. And so it builds that muscle for the joy and the excitement and the importance of reading.
Yeah, I think that is important. Start them young, and build that up in them. The importance of reading, because a lot of us, even myself, I didn't really take on the habit until later on my journey. So, because it wasn't something that you've seen, or I won't say not encouraged, because it has been something that have been encouraged in school. But it's like, as men, as boys, black boys, and men, it's like we don't do it. And if we don't do it, we realize that we come short later on our journey. So with you and the younger males that you sometimes work with, right? Um, do you find that they read more after you may share the importance of it?
Absolutely. And some of that time, some of that is also just reading alongside them,
Okay.
right? I think there's sometimes I'm giving different advice to parents on different things, and I'm like, you should read books alongside your kids. Have family time around reading. Like some of the, I know we're in 2025, and technology, this, that, AI, this, that, but there are things that we've just always just need to happen, that we may have gotten away from because of technology, but those are core things that aid in development, which can take place at home.
Man, I appreciate that, and that's a great reminder. My next question to you, still on personal transformation, what role has mentorship or guidance played in your personal and professional growth?
It's been essential. I'm not sitting here without the guidance and support of Black men like Dr. Terrell Hill and Coach Ken Smith, and the list goes on, of Black men who have taken me under their wing for a season or longer, to give me the guidance, give me the information, the knowledge, the know-how, so that I could navigate treacherous waters. Right? The purpose of mentorship is, if it took somebody else 20 steps and then they're my mentor, it should take me 10, right? Just like if it took me 10, then the person behind me should take 5, right? From that 20, so that we are accelerating growth. And so I'm literally sitting where I'm at and enjoying the life that I have because of Black men, and on occasion white men as well as Black women, and just humans, right? Who saw that I was working on something, who saw that I had a goal in mind, and they imparted knowledge and wisdom and steps. And I'm the type of person who, I'm going to do it exactly how you tell me, then I'll do it, and then I'll add my razzle dazzle afterwards. But I don't need to add my razzle dazzle prior to, like, this is what you did. Okay, I'm gonna do that same thing, and then after that, and I accomplish it. I see how it works. I see how the system moves. I see what the landscape is, and then I can add my own little razzle dazzle on it, and then impart that upon the next person.
Man, that's great. But suppose there are young people or just adults on a whole having difficulty finding mentorship. What would be your advice to those who may have a hard time finding mentorship, being that mentorship is so important?
I think one is identifying why you want a mentor and what you need a mentor for, because I think that there's a good portion of the mentor mentee relationship which falls on the mentee to continually engage the mentor in the information that they're seeking to receive. So if you have an idea of where you want to go, and the direction or the destination that you are looking to achieve, and then identifying a person who you believe will help you get there, and then you state your intended purpose, and then you continually follow up to get the right information to move forward. Then I think that would be my advice, right? Is identifying where your destination is, who can help you get there, and then you open up the door for consistent and regular communication, and opportunities for feedback, so that you can progress forward.
I thank you for sharing that, because sometimes that's the question I do receive from others who are looking for mentors and who may have a difficulty finding mentors or making the connections with mentors. But as you say, it's just to identify who they want to work with, what they want to achieve, because I think that is important, because it's not just identifying a mentor, but someone who may be aligned with what they want to accomplish and maybe be able to give them the best advice in the field of pursuit. I think that is important. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective. My next question to you, which is on community and collective impact. What do you believe are the biggest challenges Black men face today, and how can we address them? What are the challenges that we face? How can we address them?
I mean, we got challenges right in the White House. So, we have a collective assault on our civil rights, our ways of being, our ways of life. It is of the utmost importance that we collectively work together. We move not just like even when you say black, but if we're being honest, not the entire diaspora will always identify as being black, right? And so we have to actually move past that. We need to think about what does it look like for us as men um, to come together, utilize our resources, utilize our minds so that we can ensure that we have our liberation, that our communities are safe. Um, yeah, it is a time right now where you're just seeing the rollback, and then when you throw on just making sure that you stay healthy, that you make sure that you're taking care of your family, that you have the finances that you need to just live and enjoy life. All of these things are under attack for all of us, and especially as Black men. And if we don't work together, if we don't sit and think about and strategize how we are going to mobilize and ensure our communities and our families have everything they need, we could continue to fall even farther behind. And Black males are the lowest uh, in many categories, right? So there's just a collective building together that we do need to do in order to move ourselves, our families, and our communities forward. And there's no time like the present, but there is an urgency that we must move with, and to ensure that our freedoms and more
Secure.
are secure.
Yeah. So, as you stated, work together collectively. Do you see that as a challenge from your perspective, or from your um, within your environment, within those people you work with? Do you see it as something difficult, where we find it hard to work with each other?
I think it can be sometimes challenging because I think sometimes the nature of man, or even being male, is to be competitive as opposed to collaboration, and teamwork and brotherhood. I think sometimes there's a sense of that competition, and so we have to make sure that we really create spaces for us to come together and foster a sense of brotherhood. Realize that we're not on an island by ourselves; that we do not have to suffer in silence. And the more that we do that, the more that we can break down the barriers that sometimes keep us siloed when we have to work together.
And that is really important. And yes, we do have that competitive spirit, and that can really cause us not to collaborate as much as we should. But as you mentioned earlier, that our civil rights are under attack, and it's important, if we're going to move forward, the best if we move forward as a collective. And also, as you mentioned, which I think is worth repeating, is that we utilize our resources and mind as we move forward. Because if we keep our resources by ourselves and what we know by ourselves, we're not going to go as far as we are capable, because we can't go far by ourselves. We're going to need individuals. We're going to need the muscle. We're going to need the knowledge, to do some of the work that needs to be done, so we can move forward stronger, um, to and more powerful. I believe, because I strongly believe, man, we have the capability, which we have seen in our ancestors, and I think those. traits have been passed down through the DNA within us. So we have what it takes. Um, to do it. But as you mentioned, man, I think it's important that we start working together more, to move forward, stronger, more powerful, so we can achieve the things that we are capable of achieving. My next question to you is, how do we shift from which kind of similar to what you're saying, but I still want to ask this question. Um, how, from your perspective, how do we shift from individual success, to collective advancement in our communities? Just the same.
I mean, that's dispelling Eurocentric ideas of success and individualism, and that all comes from a Eurocentric state of mind. All right, we don't come from people who view that. We come from people who were collective. We come from collectivist cultures, and so it's very important to think about what does that look like for us to work together, right? And in many ways, like you have to take a different approach and not look at capitalism as a way of being. The very foundation of capitalism is to have haves and have nots. So you can't even achieve that if you fully want to thrive in a capitalistic community. If you want to create a capitalistic community, even if you started your own community with 20 people, if you want to live in a capitalistic community, I mean, some people have to have, some people have to have not, including some of those people who have not have nothing, right? That's like a basic principle of it. And so, but that's not how you would rock if you were practicing a collectivist approach, or if you're looking at collective work and responsibility. Even when we look at the Kwanzaa principles and you think about collective work and responsibility as a way of being for us and for our communities, which is how we've traditionally thrived, right? There are people in the world who have too much, right? Like, now the person who has too much doesn't think that, but like you do. Like, there's actually no need to have that much, right? When we think about the things that we need and think about what it means to be human in the basic human condition of what we need in order to thrive, in order to have success. I'm not saying that people don't need to be wealthy or, legacy, all these things. I think those are very important notions, but to walk through the streets of this country, let alone many other countries, and see people with nothing, and then people have more than they could even dream of. Like, that's not a world that truly prioritizes the human condition, right? Like I said, I know we got bills to pay and things like that. Very important. I'm not knocking that, but simultaneously, I'll never come to grasp with the fact that there's people that have nothing. That doesn't, everybody should be able to wake up every day, go to a job, make money, be able to afford. You just think about it as one person. Let's not even get into the family concept. As one individual person, you should be able to wake up, go to a job, and make enough money to pay the rent in the place you live, be able to go out to eat every now and then, take a trip every now and then, and enjoy life. That's not the world that we live in. And that's sad. And so, in order to move to a place where we have collective work and responsibilities, to denounce individualism and capitalism as like the way that the world is supposed to operate, as opposed to we can actually live in a system, in a world where everybody has what they need in order to survive, and not actually just to survive, but just to thrive.
I think that is a really important point, because sometimes I do look and see that there are people out there with a lot, and there are so many people without, and you'll be wondering. And sometimes I do look at our community, because I do see where we have accomplished so much, but yet, there are some schools that, especially, I'm not knocking athletes or entertainers, but sometimes they're the ones seems to have, those are the ones who have been publicized, and sometimes squander. the money that they have, that I think could be of better use within our community. But there are others out there which are not black people, with resources that could make, because if we're talking about, poverty within, some of those things don't have to exist. So as you mentioned, some of these people don't have to do without.
Poverty is a man-made decision. Like, and but we have to use that language. Like that's very important to say. Like how I said it is how you have to say, like, oh, poverty is a choice that men have made for that to exist. And why? Because we operate in the system that says you have to have that in order for people to have, which is simply not true. The earth itself produces everything that the world needs in order for people to have the things to thrive in life. Like it does. There's, you know what I mean? Like that's an actual fact.
Yeah.
And then to that some people don't have, oh, that's a decision. That's a very clear decision, right? That these people are going to have, and then these people are going to have. So,
Man, and it's something to think about, and hope some of the listeners who have excess, who are listening, can realize that they can help others in the community.
like if we think about it, right? Now I know I don't think this is like off topic, but right, even when you go to like scripture, like in the scripture, there'll be and people will quote this scripture so every now and it's like, oh, the last shall be first and the first shall be last, right? Like that's a scripture that people will use and they use it in different ways, right? And so like if you take that in the context of like America, sometimes you think like if you're just working class, you'll say that like, oh, like but I one day I'll be first and then the first those wealthy. But like if you live in maybe a third world, what's considered a third world country, that's America. Everybody there thinks one day I'll be first
Yeah.
and they will be last, right? So again, so like think about this: just if you just change your perspective of moving out of America, you move to a particular country, and you start talking about who's first. Oh, that's all the people that live in America. That's me and you. Period. Not about that. We not at the top. We live in America. They don't. So when you think about that, that will make you think about like, oh, this is a man-made decision, and how are we going to change? Going back to the question to get to the point of collective work and responsibility.
Yeah, I do think the collective effort needs to happen, and I think right now we should take advantage of this moment. It may not be the best situation that we have right now, but I think this moment could uh, give us that opportunity to really see the value of working together as a collective. Because if we don't, I strongly believe, where they have told us that are said in research that we have spent trillions of dollars within our community. So we have some power. We just have to redirect that power and see how we can capitalize on that power to change the dynamics of how we have been treated, if I should say.
Yeah, I think when you think about we think about this conversation and we think about people who are currently occupying all three branches of government. Well, let me ask you this question. I already have an answer. I'm gonna ask you the question. What you think when they say "Make America Great Again"? What age do you think they're trying to go back to?
Hmm. What age do?
Or even if you want to go like what years, right? Like when they say that, what does that mean?
Well, to me, it goes back to when white people may have a dominant control. I think that's the kind of perspective, that's the kind of messaging that you may get from people who out there talking about it and say, that's what they want. So to me, it's to go back to where white may have dominant control, where we are seen as less than.
So I'm gonna build upon what you're saying. I think there's a truth to what you're saying. When they say that, what they are attempting to do, and what we are watching them try to do, is return us to the Gilded Age, right? Now, there's an unfortunate part about that, because the Gilded Age is when you had the Rockefellers and the Carnegies and so on, and all these families, right? But they didn't care about people. So they didn't care about us as black people. But the key here, going even to the collective work and responsibility, is that it's not even just about black people. This is about everybody who's not white, male, and rich, period. And so there's a collective effort that we need to do as a diaspora, simultaneously thinking about, why did they kill Dr. King? Why did they kill Fred Hampton? Because they were able to mobilize collective work and responsibility even across ethnicities and races, and being like, what we're watching is class warfare, right? That is what's happening right now. And if we don't come together and realize that, whether you're black, then you're Asian, you're Latino, we all have the same oppressor, right? Which is white wealthy men, right? White wealthy men want to oppress working class white men, right? So they think, based off their race, that they align with these men, but they don't, right? Their whole purpose, everything we're watching, is the rollback to a place where you had six, seven families run everything, and they control everything. That's why they attack labor laws, right? They don't want unions, because unions are solely responsible for fair wages, right? If it was up to them, minimum wage would be $2, right? So I think, going back to the point, when they say make America great again, they're talking about the Gilded Age. And it's very important that we come together, again, as black people, but specifically even across races and genders, to mobilize so that that doesn't happen. Because during that same time, people went to school with their kids. I mean,
Yeah.
people went to work with their kids. There was no public schools, right? Public school comes into play because of labor laws. Because, like, oh, well, kids can't go, so where are the kids gonna go, right? So I mean, all these things. But what are they attacking? School, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's this very fronted attack on everything that is important and near and dear to, that makes the country a special place. And we got a lot of work to do, because before you know it, those things will all be gone.
Yeah, we do, and I'm here watching, the change and some of the things, and observing and seeing how it's going to impact us within our community. I've heard a lot of people who have been working diligently, especially within the schools. Especially black male students, any programs that have been geared towards helping, the students in the any black programs. I've heard people stated that their programs have been canceled, and a lot of people were looking towards those as means to provide for their family. So if the change is going to affect, their livelihood, things can get real drastic, soon. And it just goes back to what you start talking about, as how it's important that we work together, but pay attention to, what's happening and how it will affect us as we go forward. And this kind of align with the question that I wanted to ask, but I'm still going to ask it, so you can give some context. What are some key steps we need to take to strengthen, which, this conversation is more so on black male, but it's still, whatever you share, I believe it's applicable to everyone, because, the steps are universal, but what we can do. So, what are some key steps we need to take to strengthen black male unity and collaboration?
I'm what I believe. I haven't actually gotten this published, but I have this, like, op-ed that I have, and it's about the formation of the the diaspora agenda. So a lot of times we talked about a black agenda. I think we need to formulate a diaspora agenda. So people from Africa who have come here, people from the Caribbean, African Americans, we have our own issues with each other that that's another podcast for another day, that we need to actually reconcile around the challenges that we have amongst each other that have plagued us, for decades. And then be like, okay, what is the formation of a diaspora agenda? Because, for example, um, reparations, right? Let's use reparations as an idea, a political topic. I find that African people, Caribbean people, that's not something that's really important to them, right? For various reasons, mostly like, oh, like my parents just got here in the '70s, so it's not a big thing for me. But it's really important to African American people, right? But then you go into immigration, African American people doesn't really, it's not a big thing to them because I've been here. I'm like eighth generation, been in this country, brought over, whereas to African people, Caribbean people, it's very important, and they're disproportionately affected by deportations and camps, right? That people get put into. So, what does it look like to formulate a diaspora agenda where we have these 8 things that are important to all of us? That means there are some things we'll have to let go of, because like this is important to us, this is important to you, but we're all fighting for these 8 things. We're funding candidates that will fight for these 8 things. We're raising money based off these 8 things. And I think there's something special about creating this diaspora agenda so that we can get our needs met. Because as you already mentioned, collectively, we do have a lot of spending power and we have a lot of social and political capital, but we need to wield it in a way that we're actually working together so that we can get our needs met, as opposed to working individually to try to meet our needs in a particular community. When if we come together and think about, okay, this diaspora agenda to meet the needs of all of our communities, and we'll get the funds and the resources and so on, that's something that I think would be really, really important, and a move that we need to make in order to see the outcomes we would like to see.
And that's a great point, because I don't think we are together. Knowing that, once you show up, they don't care if you're from the Caribbean or from Africa or from America. And I think, us working together. And why I say, and I do agree with you 100%, because I think, if you don't grow up here, there are certain things that you have been conditioned to think about Black Americans. But when you come, you realize that that's not the case. They have been subjected to, certain things. Then you realize why they respond the way they do. Because the society that they grew up in have been suppressing and oppressing Black Americans, because I didn't grow up here, right? So what, because I didn't see none of the negative things really in Jamaica, right? So when I got here, I had a different perspective, and then it was after a while when I started to learn about all the atrocities that Black American have to deal with. Then I start to understand, the challenges more. And then I became a part of, being treated the same way as, Black Americans. So not only I became empathetic or sympathetic and stuff like that, I get to understand the oppressiveness that they have experienced, which now becomes my experience. Because once I become a part of, I have to accept that I'm here. So the same treatment. So it's great for me to see American and even Africans that are here as one, and so we must work together. So I really like how you put it, because if you didn't grow up here, you may come and be wondering first. Because my first semester here in college, right, I used to be wondering, man, why the kids, on campus may not, do all the things that we were just going and trying to make things happen. And then I started to understand that, they have been in a community where they have been treated in a way to think they are not, capable, think they are less than, and it affects them, and not just the community, but the parents and the trauma and stuff like that. So, it really gave me a deeper understanding by being here.
Yeah, I think like being from Jamaica, what most people in Jamaica and almost any other Caribbean island or any country which you can relate to, one is class warfare, right?
Yeah.
Like if you go, it's not it's like everybody's black, but it's like, oh, there's class warfare. It's very present, right? And so, but then you come to America and then you kind of can buy into the thing that makes America special is that it has more social and economic mobility than almost any country in the world, right?
Correct.
That's what makes it special. That's why you want to get here. Like no
Oh,
matter where you come from, you want to get here because of the social and economic mobility. And once you get a piece of that, it can make you feel like it's not class warfare because our middle class is stronger than most countries' middle classes. Other countries are trying to build a middle class similar to ours, but if we're when you're watching what's happening, it's class warfare,
yeah.
right? And so you could feel like you've made a little bit because of the social and economic mobility, but that's what they're coming for, right? Like you were watching them try to dismantle it. Like the reason why there's social economic mobility is because of our public education system. I'm not saying is the best thing ever, but the fact is like where you start, whether you come for college or you were and you get born here, your parents get here, whatever. Wherever you start is not where you have to finish.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
not the case in Jamaica, right? Something like where you start is where you finish. There's not too much opportunity to make that jump. Just one step above, let alone into a whole nother class, right?
Yeah.
And so there, but part of that rationale and why that exists is because we have a public education system that, yes, while I'm black and I'm male, and there's tons of barriers that I have to go through, and there's a glass ceiling, and the list goes on. Racism, classism, sexism for the women is all there. But yet, and still, in spite of all of that,
Yeah.
I can take certain steps and move into that. They don't want that, right? Almost every black person that I know, whether you're from Jamaica, from the Caribbean, you're like one of the few people that work in your department at like whatever company, right? That's still a case in 2025, and they think that that's too much. They like think about it, right? Like I'm not sure what you do professionally outside of this, right? But people will say, like when you think about everything, we're talking about like DEI and the DEI hire, whatever. There's a department with 20 people in it. There's only one black person in the department, and that person is a DEI hire. When you say DEI hire, what you're saying is you got your job because you're black. Now, Dr. Cross, I know that you came in college, but I don't know a job that you've gotten because you were black.
Not one.
Because that would then you would say, then why did I do all the things that I did? Like if all it took for me to get the job was because I was black, then why would I
But
wouldn't have did half the stuff. You know what I'm saying? I did
that's
because
right.
just for me just because I'm black.
I,
But
I,
think about it,
no,
and
go
people are
ahead.
saying like that's they got too much. There's one
Yeah.
person in the department.
One
The
and
black.
and just although this is a little bit off the topic, but just as stick a pin where you are right now. And sometimes when we are qualified, we don't get the opportunity because we now become a threat in those spaces. And one of the things that I've heard since I came here, you have to work twice as hard to get the same opportunity. And sometimes when you show excellent work, then you start to be treated in a way to kind of push you out of those same environments that you have worked hard to get in, because now they see you as a threat, in those spaces because you're doing great work. Um, and although that's a different conversation, because that is one thing that I've seen, I've experienced it in different departments. I'm going to, once when it comes to work, I'm going to work hard. That's one thing you will not get to say about me. But we sometimes have pushbacks because we show excellent work. we step up and do what we're supposed to do. And sometimes that becomes a challenge. But if you should advise, black males who sometimes experience that type of experience, what would you say to them to, so they can stay encouraged and, keep going?
You belong there. You've done all the work to be there. There's no need for your imposter syndrome to take place. You can build a table. You can lead the table. You sit at the table. You They are better because you are there. And so any black male, any black person that's dealing with the challenges that imposter syndrome. I don't even like talking. That's a whole other conversation. But dealing with that challenge, you are more than capable. You are supposed to be there. We need you to be there, and we also need you when you get into that leadership role to open the door and hire more people that look just like you.
And that itself is another topic. Once we get there, man, we need to, open doors, because that is a topic in itself. Once we get there, it's our responsibility, to start opening doors, for individuals like us to get in, because it can be a challenge. I spoke to, a lady recently, an African American lady, and whilst I was talking to her, she said, "Oh, I know that you're from the Caribbean. I know that it sometimes can be difficult, to get an opportunity. So I understand, because I too is international." I didn't know, because she didn't have no accent, and she said, it can be difficult, and it's my duty, to make sure I open the door for somebody else that I believe is qualified for the opportunity. So that is one thing, as you mentioned, that we have to take in consideration as we go forward on this journey, especially, with the challenges that we sometimes experience. But I want to shift gear a little bit, before our time up, today, because I know we can talk, forever on, major different, topics and stuff like that. So I'm this section that I want to ask you about, is on intentional leadership and legacy, because it ties to what you just mentioned about, once we ascend to certain levels and we have, in the position of power, now we have to take on, that responsibility, and don't feel guilty about it, because I think sometimes as black people we feel guilty for helping each other, and we should not feel guilty, but that's not the question I want to ask. The question is, what does intentional leadership means to you, and how do you embody it in your work?
I subscribe to servant leadership, coined by Robert Greenleaf. I believe leaders eat last. I think an opportunity to lead is an opportunity to serve. And so, in every way that I work and lead the Black Man Can, and even other organizations where I was a leader, I always came from a servant leadership mentality. And that has allowed me to be the most effective leader. It has allowed me to build amazing relationships. It has allowed me to show up to make sure that I meet the needs of those who are looking to me to lead them in the right direction.
Oh man, that is great. Leadership is a position to serve, and to serve those who you are entrusted, to lead. And I think that is important. And I think once we approach it like that, we will, take the best interests of those who are entrusted in our care, at heart. So I think that is really important as leaders, to see it as a position, to serve others, and not to serve ourselves, because some leaders think, it is to serve them, not the people. So really glad that you bring that up, and how important that is, when it comes to leadership and legacy. My next question to you, still on leadership and, legacy: what are some of the most critical lessons you have learned about building a lasting impact? You have been, especially doing your work for over 15 years. What are some of the lessons that you have, learned in the process?
Consistency is essential. So if you stay consistent, and you deliver on what you say you're going to deliver on, and you show up every single day and work hard, you can continually build. I think you want to have a vision of where you want to go. You have to be able to not be afraid to pivot, as well as you go along. Like, you have to be nimble. I think nimble is a really good word of, like, when you're building something and you see a different opportunity, or you're paying attention to trends, and, like, well, I had this vision, then the pandemic happens, right? You gotta be nimble,
Yeah.
to be able to make shifts that will better allow for you to navigate the world and whatnot. So I think nimbleness, consistency, and just remember your why, as well. Like, I started the Black Man Can started as a blog
Oh, wow.
to tell the stories of Black men and boys. A blog. It was not a business. Didn't go start an LLC. Just got a website and started telling stories. So no matter what, as we move forward, what's my why? My why is to tell the stories of Black men and boys, to show how amazing, intelligent, capable, confident, and every other amazing positive adjective that I could possibly say to the world. And that's the why. And always holding true to that, never deviating, never allowing it to be co opted, never allowing it to be rushed, never allowing it to be manipulated. At the end of the day, we are exactly what our name is, the Black Man Can.
And I really like that, as you said, never allow it to be deviated, so not deviating from the values that you stand on when it comes to what you're doing. And I think that is important, because I think sometimes we do start programs and we allow outside entity to infiltrate and then change the meaning of what we're trying to accomplish. But as you mentioned, consistency is essential, and having a vision when it comes to whatever we're building, it's important because we need to know where we're going and what we want to accomplish, and always stand on the why, because the journey gets tough, and the why is going to help to sustain the journey, especially in moments of challenges. But I will ask this before I go to my next question. We're almost getting to the end of our time today. But what are some of the testimonies that you have received personally from the Black Man Can, working in that space, working with those Black men, sharing those stories, telling some of the great things that Black men are doing? What are some of the testimonies that, stand out to you by others that share with you?
That's a whole nother show. We could do a whole show on that.
Wow.
I've met moms, dads, uncles, kids, mentees who have shared amazing stories. People who I don't even know. Like, if you go to the Black Man Can page right now, from your Instagram, you'll probably see some people that follow the Black Man Can. I don't know them.
Yeah.
I don't know them. Like, we never met. They don't even know. They don't even know I exist as a person,
Wow.
right? But they rock with the movement. So there's just been so many amazing stories of just the Instagram DMs, because, like, a lot of people interface with us through Instagram, so they don't even know we have programs in schools. We have programs in juvenile facilities, right? That's something some people literally don't know. That they just think it's an Instagram page, right? So I think being able to create that type of impact on the ground, online, in person, and then hear from people in all three areas, just be happy that the Black Man Can exist. I think when I started it, I wondered if people wanted to see the images and the narratives that we are sharing. And 15 years later, I can unequivocally say, yes, people want to see it, and they want to see it more. They want to see it in their television shows. They want to see it in programming. They want to see it in just walking down the street. That's even what the merch represents, right? Where it says the Black Man Can. Like, when you're wearing a Black Man Can hoodie or a T-shirt or a hat, you're a walking affirmation,
Yeah.
right? People see, like, yeah, you get that head nod, like, yeah, you know what I mean. So that's what it's about. I mean, like again, I could go down to stories of just DMs of people just being happy to be able to see the content. I have messages of people who have sent their sons or their nephews to a program and said, "Man, he came back, and just from that one day, I saw a change." We have students who have gone to Morehouse College because they came to a Black Man Can programming, right? So I think all these things together, I don't have too many bad days because I get to think about the stories that people share with me around how as things have impacted them. I get DMs every day. We're pretty much like the only Instagram page that's like designed to celebrate men for proposing, right? It's a commitment. It's a big step that a man takes when he does that. But you can send your post with your caption to the Black Man Can, talking about why you found the love of your life. Again, we ladies should definitely be celebrated, and they got the ring and all that, absolutely. But there needs to be a place where men just get to come and be like, man, I found the love of my life, and be celebrated for making that decision.
Man, I've seen so many of those posts on the Black Man Can page, and that really also send a positive message, because one of the things that we have heard a lot, that black men don't get married and stuff like that. They're not in their kids' lives and stuff like that. To see it, it counter the narrative that we have been fed all these years. I think that is really important, as you said. The black men need to be celebrated for taking that step forward to send a more positive message in the world, in their community, in their family and stuff like that, to let others who are coming behind them know that, oh no, you can go forward, start a family and do it the right way by marriage and stuff like that. And that is great. My final well, not my final question, um, but we get into closing. But I need to ask this question: if you could leave one message for young black men striving for impact, what would it be?
I'm gonna tell a story. I say this a lot, but I think every time I say it, I'm also in a new venue with new people, so therefore it's a new story, even though I might have shared it previously. But what I would tell, there's a few things I would say. One, every man and woman was put on this earth to do something unique and something distinctive. If he or she does not do it, it will never be done. Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, sixth president of Morehouse College. I'll do this one too. It's right here. Whatever you do, strive to do it so well that no man living and no man dead and no man yet to be born could do it any better. Also, Dr. Benjamin Elijah Mays, sixth president of Morehouse College. And the other thing that I'll say is the quick story I'll share is, Dr. Cross, have you ever had 7 Up, the soda?
Yes, yes, I think we have a lot of those in Jamaica.
Yeah, it's called 7 Up because it took them 7 different formulas before they got all the right chemicals together to drink
Oh
the
wow.
7 Up that you drink in Jamaica, right? Have you ever used 409? I mean, have you ever used WD-40 in your house? Do you have WD-40?
Hmm.
Well, WD-40 stands for water displacement perfected on the 40th try. So it took them 40 times before they got the right chemicals together to use WD-40 that we use today. And then 409, the cleaning agent that you use in the kitchen, is called 409 because it took them 409 times before they got all the right chemicals together to use 409. So to a black man striving, from me and you to everyone listening, um, everybody can relate to starting something and on the second time they quit. All 3 of those products have grossed over $1 billion since they were created.
Wow.
So inside of you is $1 billion dreams, $1 billion goals, $1 billion ideas. You have to stay consistent and persistent, and persevere in order to make those dreams become a reality because it's possible.
Man, that is so profound. And not knowing how they got their names, those products that you mentioned. But it's a great reminder to all of us, to the next generation, that once we start, there will be challenges, but we must not give up. We must remain consistent and we must persist if we're going to achieve what we want to achieve. But I know you have mentioned the blackmail can several times. But again, if you don't mind, just give where you want the people to connect with you, and just to learn more, and also to support the great work that you're doing.
Yeah, you can check us out, blackmancan.com, blackmancan.org. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. We have a 15-year anniversary celebration. Dr. Cross, where are you based?
I'm currently in Missouri. Where it's going
Missouri.
to be in
Well,
Georgia?
it's gonna be in New York City. It's gonna be in New York City. Our 15-year anniversary celebration. So I send you an invitation, and
Oh yeah,
if you're April 26th, we'll be celebrating 15 years of celebrating a black man, and so we'll love for you to join us,
yeah,
and
man.
but
I
that's
do.
but yeah, that's it, man. We just, like I said, just a vessel for the Lord. This whole conversation, I just I wake up every day to try to be a vessel for the Lord in the best way possible. And I just want to say thank you to you for reaching out and thinking enough of the work that we're doing to have me on your platform. It's truly an honor.
Man, it's a pleasure, man. When I had the desire to start back in 2018, I didn't start the Blackmail Impact until a little bit over 2 years ago. But I've started different programs in different colleges. But I've moved from college to college and stuff like that. And my last college, I decided, man, I'm going to do this. But I've seen when I was a professor at Clark. That's when I really came across your work back in 2017, 2018. So man, and I've seen the growth, since then. So man, it's a pleasure, having you here, and for the work that you're doing, and for the listeners, as always. The goal is to bring guests that we believe will share valuable insights and perspective that we all can use as we continue on this journey. The Black Male Impact is where positive changes are inspired. Continue to give us your support as we continue to share with you as much as we can to help you on your journey to make an impact.